Is Bitcoin digital gold? Is Bitcoin a safe haven? This is what we're going to talk about in this episode of Crypto Corner. Welcome, now let's get started. Alright everyone, welcome to another episode of Crypto Corner, your go-to place for all things crypto. My name is OJ, crypto analyst and investor since 2016. This is my 10th year in crypto. So all eyes are on Bitcoin, and again I'm seeing a lot of talk about Bitcoin being a safe haven and all of that. I actually just saw this article that someone posted on TradingView. It's a user called KuCoin, and he's making this post here titled War, Bitcoin and the Myth of Safe Havens. So let's break it down. Let's go through this and see what is the message here. And can we relate? Do I agree with this? I'm gonna give you my opinion, but I did feel that there's quite a few things in this post that are worth mentioning, that are worth your attention as well. So let's go through it. Hello traders, he says, you think Bitcoin is digital gold? Wait until the bombs drop. Everyone talks about Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, against fiat, against banking failures. But let me ask you this, is Bitcoin a hedge against war? I'm not here to give you a yes or no, I'm here to make you uncomfortable, because if you think BTC always pumps when chaos hits, you're trading dreams, not reality. And this is a very fair point, because let's face it, every time we do have massive instability or things that are happening that cause a lot of uncertainty, like the war that broke with Ukraine 3 years ago, most recently the war that broke between Israel and Iran. Even though it's not directly affecting US and the whole world, it is indirectly affecting the US, and then Trump decided to step in, making it even more direct, and with that we did see some sell-offs. So you can see here the chart that he's sharing, and he has marked here the Ukraine war, which actually caused quite a serious drop in the Bitcoin price. Then we did have the Middle East escalating, where we actually saw an increase in Bitcoin price, meaning that in this case it was treated like a safe haven, like a hedge. And now we see the tensions between Israel and Iran, where Bitcoin is kind of choppy. It is not really dumping, but it's also not pumping. So by all means, these three scenarios here are painting different pictures. So if you're going to be following only the price action and you're expecting that this price action should be following the same pattern every time a war breaks, you would be surprised to see that we have here three different scenarios, Bitcoin behaving differently. So is Bitcoin really a safe haven? This is really the question. Let's test your assumptions against actual history, he says. February 2022 is when Ukraine got invaded. Bitcoin dumps hard, and then it recovers. Was it a hedge or just the market gasping for liquidity? October 2023, the Middle East escalates. Bitcoin spikes. If it dumped last time there was a war, why is it pumping this time? Was it fear of fiat instability, he asks, or just algo-driven momentum? And then April 2025, I think he meant to write here, because it says 2024, but I'm sure we're talking about the current situation here, the Hormuz Strait tensions, which is, the Middle Eastern tensions right now. And he says whipsaws, no clear direction. So again, what exactly is Bitcoin reacting to? Are you reading price or just feeding a narrative you want to believe? And this is a good point, because indeed we would expect the beginning of a war, and in this case, when especially now in June, when the US struck, and we were really wondering whether there's going to be an escalation. It seems like so far there's no escalation. I'm pretty sure that things are now cooking in the background, and at some point we're going to see another strike, whether it's going to come from Iran or Israel. I mean, it's very likely that it will be from both sides. Anyways, I don't think that this tension is going to be calmed anytime soon. I don't think that this was it. I mean, we haven't really seen a peace deal at this point. they can't even agree on ceasefire. So I'm pretty sure that this will escalate further. So we will have more chances to analyze Bitcoin's charts and see how Bitcoin reacts to this. But so far, from what we are seeing, it's a different reaction at different circumstances. So it is not that Bitcoin is so much of a safe haven. It is more that Bitcoin is actually reacting to this, and it's reacting in a different way, which is actually a good point. He says here that Bitcoin is a fear thermometer. In war, people flee. Banks freeze, censorship rises, panic spreads. All very true points. Some run to gold, some run to the dollar, and some, a few, he thinks, run to Bitcoin. Now, let me insert another point here. It's true that in times of instability, political instability, especially war, gold becomes king, because gold is one of those things that have been proven to be safe haven. And in previous times, in previous wars and everything, gold was always the go-to safe haven. However, I feel that the times have changed, and they have changed a lot. And if anything, the Ukraine war was a very good example, because it is quite a recent example, is when people were fleeing Ukraine in big numbers, a lot of these people were carrying crypto. And we saw that a lot of Ukrainians actually turned to Bitcoin, and Russians as well. Russians turned to Bitcoin to avoid sanctions and to move money easily and stuff like that. People who were fleeing Ukraine were also turning to Bitcoin and crypto in general, but Bitcoin in particular, because it's much easier to escape, to flee your country with a USB or with a small cold wallet or something like that, small device where you can have hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can have millions of dollars even in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And this fits in your pocket, you can smuggle it, you can hide it. It's so much easier to do that than doing it with gold. So in these times in this digital age, I believe that the assumption that only a few run to BTC and more people run to gold and the dollar, I think this is a wrong assumption. I'm pretty sure that in numbers, this is true. And for the most part, those who run to gold would be the older generation. And of course, those who run to the dollar, people who are just needing, cash, because the dollar is easy to exchange in any country. So wherever you're going, if you have dollars, it's very likely that you will be able to do whatever you want with dollars. Bitcoin, it's true that it's a little bit more difficult to convert it into the local currency, depending on which country you're going to be. But it's also true that if you want to be transporting millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of an asset, a digital asset like Bitcoin is going to be much easier than gold. Going across borders, you cannot transport hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have a limit of 10,000, but also you will have to be going through some serious checks in order to prove that there is no money laundering happening. So it becomes very complicated if you're going to be in a times of war, if you're turning to the dollar. If you're turning to gold, you will still have to worry about how you carry it and everything, but again, you can still carry a chunk of gold, and it's not going to be that difficult. It's going to be, a lot of value. But if we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and even millions of dollars, crypto is going to be your best option. So here I disagree to a certain extent, because I feel that it's not just a few that run to Bitcoin, and even if it's a few, if these are the people with the biggest amounts of money, and you're going to be transporting millions, and you have 10 people transporting millions, and then you have 10,000 people transporting hundreds of dollars, I would still argue that it makes a difference. It doesn't matter that it's only 10 people transporting crypto. If these are the people that are going to be transporting millions of dollars, it makes a difference. But don't forget, he says, let's continue here, most retail investors panic sell, institutions vanish, and liquidity dies. Good point. So here's the punchline. Bitcoin isn't a safe haven. It is a sentiment mirror, brutally honest and totally unstable. The totally unstable part, I don't quite agree with, because yes, we do have initial sell-offs, we do have big dumps happening, and usually they happen very quickly, They happen in a short space of time, and then very quickly after that we see the recovery, because at times of huge uncertainty, when the FUD hits, when we have this kind of announcement of a war, or at the start of the pandemic, if you remember, we did have a massive dump that happened in the matter of a few days, a couple of days. But that sell-off is happening because people are really looking for liquidity. People need to free some money to have some, spare cash. So they are selling off some assets and stuff like that. But we saw that every time with the pandemic, with the Ukrainian war, even if you want to talk the tariff wars, which were also a cause for a huge dump in the market, very quickly after that, as soon as this narrative calms down, which usually the news cycle is like 3 days, a week at best, and then it switches to something else, because news cannot constantly talk about the same thing. People start, being disengaged. So after the news cycle changes, we see a recovery instantly. Every time we have a sharp drop because of some sort of a FUD, we also have a sharp pump after that, a sharp recovery. So I would argue that Bitcoin is still a safe haven. It's just not the most stable safe haven. It is prone to drops. It is prone to sell-offs during FUD, but it's also prone to quick recoveries, and that's very important, because not everything that drops is having a quick recovery, and Bitcoin is one of those few coins, especially if we talk about crypto. Bitcoin is always the first one that is going to recover before the altcoins recover. Money usually flows out of altcoins and goes into Bitcoin or fiat, but as market starts recovering, it always goes into Bitcoin first, and then when it feels safe to diversify, then it flows out of Bitcoin into altcoins. So definitely, and also if we compare Bitcoin to gold, gold is kind of maintaining its value. Yes, recently it did have some pumps and everything, but overall gold is acting quite stable. And this is why, during times of fear and uncertainty, people tend to go for gold. But as I said, if we're talking about war zones and people fleeing war, they're actually turning to Bitcoin lately. They've been turning to digital assets and not physical assets. So the question is, you still want to call it digital gold? Well, I do. I still want to call it digital gold, because we've seen that even when Bitcoin has these kind of drops, even when it goes through a bear cycle, it always recovers, and it even reaches new all-time highs. I mean, it's very important to look at the long-term picture. And yes, gold is now almost at an all-time high. It reached an all-time high very recently, which is very good performance. Of course, we have had a lot of instability lately, so it made perfect sense that gold is on the run. But since October, or was that November 2022, gold has pumped by 115%. So that's a very good increase. It's doubled basically its price since November 2022. What has Bitcoin done in the same period? Since November 2022, Bitcoin is now at this point 580% up since that date. So same amount of time. One is arguably the safest haven asset, gold, 115% increase. And the other one is the so volatile, unstable, as he calls it, Bitcoin, 580% up. Yes, Bitcoin is very volatile because Bitcoin is still in its price discovery. Bitcoin is yet to find where is the actual price where we're going to all agree that this is a fair value, and it's going to be difficult from that point on to be making these huge pumps, and it's going to have, much lesser volatility. These will come hopefully soon. And I know that most people are in Bitcoin to make money, so they want that volatility. But also, if we are going to be talking about mass adoption of Bitcoin, we do need some stability. It will never have a completely stable price, but the volatility needs to be a little bit lower for people to be able to start using that asset as a payment method as well. Because right now, We are all just holding Bitcoin. It's a store of value for many rather than being a unit of exchange and to really treat it as money. So if we want to have mass adoption, if we want to treat it as money, we do need lower volatility, and that will come. As price goes up and up and up, at some point, it will reach a point where it's not going to be continuing to pump like crazy. But definitely we do have a diminishing volatility in Bitcoin. So that is good. Even though for most people, especially people who are jumping into Bitcoin now and wanting to become millionaires, I mean, this boat has sailed. I mean, if you put a lot of money in Bitcoin, you will make a lot of money as well. But if you put $100 in Bitcoin, you're not going to become a millionaire, which is what we used to do back in the day. So with that said, let's just quickly go back to the article and see his next point, which is: war doesn't create trends, it exposes bias. Most of you are trying to fit Bitcoin's price into a geopolitical event. Wrong approach. You should be asking, what kind of war is this? Does it shake the dollar? Very good points here. Very good points. Does it cause capital controls? Does it threaten global liquidity? Bitcoin doesn't care about explosions, it cares about trust. If you break trust in fiat, Bitcoin might thrive. If you spike short-term fear, Bitcoin might collapse. The hard truth, he says, most of you can't read war. No offense, but most retail traders don't understand geopolitics. They just look at headlines and wait for a green candle. So here's your challenge. Next time a war breaks out, ask yourself, is this bullish for Bitcoin? Is it just loud? Be honest. Don't just copy Twitter takes. If you're long on Bitcoin because of war, you better know why. Bitcoin might go up, Bitcoin might tank, but if your reason is just the world is collapsing, you're gambling, not investing. Ask the deeper questions. Are people losing faith in centralized systems? Are borders tightening? Are currencies being weaponized? Bitcoin shines only when sovereignty collapses, not just when missiles fly. This is also a very good point. And final thoughts. War doesn't pump Bitcoin, distrust does. Learn the difference or keep trading headlines. Would you hold Bitcoin during a war? And why? He's asking. Give me the logic and let's debate. Well, do drop a comment below so that we can see what you guys here in the Crypto Corner community think about that. But I found this to be quite a poignant article. I do, as you see, I do disagree here and there with a few points, but it's not really a big disagreement. It's more about disagreement on the level of these points. For instance, the fact that he feels that Bitcoin is not really a safe haven because of volatility. I would argue that Bitcoin is still a safe haven because it's still a hedge against many of the other assets, but it still has the volatility. It could be both. It could have the volatility and still be a safe haven, in a sense that yes, in the short term, you can have massive drops of Bitcoin, so your capital could actually lose value greatly if it stays in Bitcoin. But this is in the short term. Nobody has lost money in holding Bitcoin more than 4 years. So if we look at the 4-year cycles, and especially if we look at the longer term, I've been holding Bitcoin for 10 years now. I am massively in profit with Bitcoin for 10 years, way more than I would have if I was holding just gold. And yes, gold is the safe haven. I don't think anything trumps gold at this point. So definitely, if you are with the mindset of just preserving your capital for the long run, maybe you want to store it in gold. But if we're talking about increasing of capital, of gaining value and everything, but if you want to actually increase your capital, if you want big profit, Bitcoin is definitely the better asset, and it's definitely a safe hedge against many other assets. And in that sense, I feel that it still is a safe haven. And before I leave you guys, a quick reminder to always keep your coins in your own self-custodial storage. I travel right now, I'm in Buenos Aires, and I travel with all of these cold wallets. I have here OneKey Pro, I have OneKey Classic, I have Tangem, I have Bitbox, this is the Tangem Ring as well. There are all kinds of wallets, they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and everything, so you have plenty to choose from. I have a free PDF where you can see all of the reviews that I've done over the years from all of the different brands and everything. I've reviewed all of the top wallets currently on the market, so you can go through that PDF, download it, the link is in the description below, or you can scan this QR code as well and download this free ebook and just go through the reviews, pick the one that seems to be right for you. It doesn't matter which one. My personal preference right now is for OneKey Pro, but I also like the OneKey Classic, I like the Tangem. I mean, all of the wallets right now are really secure and everything, so it really comes down to price and size and format, whichever you like, it's up to you. But definitely guys, make sure that even if you hold just $1,000 in crypto, put it in a cold wallet, self-custodial cold wallet, because custodial wallets have the right to freeze your account. They can force you to go through all kinds of identification and proof of ownership and proof of purchase and all of these things, and make it difficult for you. I know people, I have customers who actually use my services to help them with these things. So I know a lot of terrible stories that happen to people with even Coinbase, you know, such a big wallet provider. They can freeze your account for months and months. One of my actually clients is still dealing with them after a year, and he cannot get access to his accounts because they're frozen. So definitely guys, make sure to keep your coins in a cold wallet, not to mention all the hacks. I mean, many people are keeping their coins on exchanges, but if you're not trading these coins this week or next week, then move them out of the exchange, put them in your cold wallet, and then when you need to trade them again, bring them back in. The fees are not that high. You better pay, you know, $1 or $2 fee for the transfer than just risking your coins getting stolen from a hack or anything like that. So this is everything. Thanks for staying until the end of the video, and while you're here, just pick another one and I'm gonna see you there.